At some point or another, everyone looks back on a part of their life and wishes that they could do it all over again. A period where things were simpler, where you missed opportunities that you kick yourself for not taking advantage of. It's not so much that you're looking back with nostalgia for how things once were, but with admiration for how and who you used to be. It's usually high school or college that people fixate on, because that's the time in your life where you had the most freedom and resources with the least amount of responsibilities to worry about. It's ripe with potential, but you rarely understand that at the time. To a child entering adulthood, those years can seem more serious and important than they probably are. Every decision seems vital. Your first taste of responsibility feels like the pinnacle of what responsibility can be because you've never had anything heavier than that on your shoulders. Your first love feels like the be-all and end-all of what a relationship can ever be because you've never experienced anything like it before and can't imagine anything feeling better. The phrase "youth is wasted on the young" comes from the idea that you never fully appreciate all the good things about being young until you get older and don't have those good things anymore. That everything your teenage self thought was a huge deal and a major hassle actually weren't, once you view them through the more worldly and experienced eyes of an adult. And once you have that perspective, you'd give anything for the chance to go back and apply it to those simpler days. Going forward is scary and complicated, so we dream of retreating backwards into familiar territory, armed with knowledge that can elevate us in that old environment and give us the experience we were denied the first time around. A lot of stories grant that wish, but the anime series ReLIFE dealt with it in a way that resonated with me. It follows Arata Kazuki, a guy pushing 30 whose life is going nowhere. He's unemployed and has no idea what to do with himself. He's just sort of drifting and trying not to wallow in it too much. He takes whatever part-time service job he can get while doing whatever he can to avoid talking about it with his friends, all of whom are better off than he is. Kazuki gets the chance to leave behind all concerns about joblessness, pride, and financial security when he's approached about joining a clinical study called ReLIFE. He's given a pill that'll alter his outward appearance, making him look like he's 17 again. The plan is to send him back to high school for a year and see how reinserting an adult into that environment changes him and what impact it has on those around him. What makes this show stand out is how genuine it feels. The only larger-than-life element you have to accept is the existence of this pill that can make you look a different age, and that's only there to get the ball rolling. He's not transforming into a kid again. He's still physically the exact same 27-year-old he always is. It's just his outward appearance looks young. And we're not time traveling to let him relive his own past. It's all present day, and he's just inserted into a class as a transfer student at the beginning of the school year. Approaching it this way smartly takes the focus off of the mechanism of how we got here, and instead lets the narrative be entirely about what we do now that we are here, while abandoning any stakes higher than what you'd find in the daily life of a clean-cut teenager that doesn't really understand the world yet. And really, that's what a lot of the drama comes down to. Almost the entire cast is around 17, and their problems all amount to something pretty simple that can be solved with a conversation. But the fact that they don't immediately just talk it out is what sells this as a good depiction of kids in high school. When Reina tries her hardest, yet still comes in second or third place to people who seem to lap her without much effort, it's a tremendous and constant blow to her self-esteem. When she gets it in her head that one of those same people is trying to steal her crush away, Reina loses it. The world may as well be ending in her eyes, and it almost costs her the best friend she's ever had, despite the fact that not one single negative thing she believes is actually true. She misinterprets what's going on, internalizes it, and blows it so wildly out of proportion that she can't take it anymore, which brings back all sorts of memories of my own high school experience. Fortunately, we have this character who's so tone-deaf to social cues that she'll confront someone about any given topic directly and bluntly, meaning people in her sphere don't get to wallow in their own silent grief for very long. And in all of this, Kazuki plays an unexpected role. Both the viewer and Kazuki are on the same page. We know what would be best for these young people to do to resolve their problems, but the question becomes, should he step in and help them? At first he does, and it's a pretty big help. But before long, the point is raised that if you don't let people make mistakes, if you don't let them experience the pain of their own choices, they won't learn and they won't grow. That kind of self-discovery and growth is a major part of the school experience, and that's why ReLIFE sent Kazuki back to high school to begin with. He gets to take everything he's learned about the world and about himself, look at it through the lens of this new environment, and get a perspective that nobody could ever truly have otherwise. As if this show wasn't already dealing with the subject matter well enough, they also address the most potentially troublesome thing that could come out of this premise. Kazuki falls in love with one of his classmates. This is where the show impressed me all over again, because it would be incredibly easy to depict Kazuki's interactions with teenage girls as a way for both him and the viewer to live out some fantasies and offer up some fan service. But not only are all the female characters in this show dressed and shaped like regular people, ReLIFE avoids ever being creepy or perverse with its overall treatment of the subject. Instead of pandering to the audience, they use the situation to explore deeper questions about relationships, like whether expressing your love is even worth it when you know for a fact you're only going to be together for a short time. She doesn't know Kazuki's real age, and he has to go back to being an adult at the end of the school year, so any relationship they formed would have that as an abrupt cutoff regardless of any other factors, similar to a romance between two high school seniors who might be heading to different colleges. He's forced to ask heavy questions about the nature of love and whether it matters less when you know it's impossible to have a future with that person. Despite all that, the potential romance between the main character and his love interest is never a central focus of the story. In fact, the love story that's the most endearing and has the best payoff is between two of the supporting characters. ReLIFE doesn't prioritize its protagonists the way most things do, and that's key to what they're going for. If Kazuki was always front and center, he'd be a constant filter for what's going on. And since he's 10 years older than everyone else, that would make most of what the cast does and feel seem strange and foreign to us because that's how it feels to him. By letting things happen to them even when Kazuki isn't around to react, it lends a sense of normalcy. They become characters in their own right, not character types for the protagonist to bounce off of. I'm surprised how invested I got in this show, though I probably shouldn't be. I find it all too easy to project myself onto Kazuki, even if our situations don't line up exactly. In truth, out of the massive pile of anime I still haven't watched yet, I picked out this show because I've always fantasized about some version of this. Getting a second chance to appreciate things that I took for granted the first time around. Letting myself do and say things I've always regretted holding back on because I was afraid or didn't have my priorities in order. When you look back at your past and see things as being lost, watching a show that talks about how to get it back can have the same effect as watching a show all about how wonderful it must be to gain the ability to fly. But instead of wish fulfillment and escapist fantasy, ReLIFE focused on how to move forward by looking back and apply new context to the way you think about things. And that ended up being something I needed even more. Nothing you learn in school can fully prepare you for what life is like after you graduate into the real world. And adult life gives you a lot of valuable knowledge and experience that can come at the expense of simplicity and optimism. ReLIFE sends a strong message on the importance of perspective and how you have to step away from what you're used to in order to gain it. The world is more than what we live in right here and now, and we're more complicated than our current thoughts and beliefs. Spending most of our time alone or with people who think the same way we do just leads to our own opinions and beliefs and fears being echoed back at us. It stunts our growth, gives us a much more narrow perspective on things, and makes us think we have fewer viable options than we actually do. Kazuki surrounded himself with people that live in a different world than he does. He was able to look at that world from the inside and the outside at the same time and take away a better understanding of his own adult life. And he did it by leaving his comfort zone behind. It's something that every one of us has the ability to do, and it's scary as hell. But it can help us make our futures better, without even needing some magic pill.